we've said this before. This is a conversation that needs to be had. And we will obviously find a lot of folks who will think that it's not necessary. It's not a necessary conversation to have because, again, the issue of race within Latin America can always be swept under the rug.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
absolutely. One of those things that it's underlying, but it's
yes,
lying very heavy. And people just don't bring it forward. They don't bring it to the light. And in my opinion, one, because I think they're embarrassed to talk
yeah,
about, it's
yeah,
like, and it does show a little bit, at least in my opinion, it does show a little bit of racism.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
I think people don't want to be depicted in that light. Oh, I'm not
yeah.
racist. You're not
Right,
racist, but would you eat out of the same plate
right, right.
from someone who you consider is not the same as you, or that they shouldn't be because they're that way?
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and I think it's a topic that does need to be brought to the light.
Yeah, and part of the reason people reject the label of racist is because people associate racism with being a bad person, and no one wants to be a bad person.
Right.
The problem is that in doing so, people fail to recognize that you can have the best of intentions while being racist
Mhm.
because racism is one of those things that is learned. So you're not born racist. It's a learned conduct. It's a
Behave.
learned behavior.
Yeah.
And the specifics of racism sometimes are things that are taken for granted, so much so that you don't see anything wrong with it. I
Right.
remember people telling me, but like, we don't mean anything by that. I mean, it's just calling you this or saying this to you, we're just playing around.
Right.
And and this is when I come back and tell them, okay, so if I tell you that this is not how I see it, if I tell you that it is offensive to me, then why do you insist on saying it or doing it? Because it doesn't matter how you feel about it. It's how I feel about it because I am the person
Recipient.
exactly on the other end of it. So
Right.
you should respect that
Right.
and just move on. Do you know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
But don't tell me it's nothing because you don't mean nothing by that.
Right.
Do you know?
I
So
say it out of endearment,
right.
you know.
Or because I know you and you know that I don't
I don't
feel
mean any
this way.
harm. Right.
It-
Right.
I remember, like, in early psychology classes, a professor said that when you go to a carnival, when you go to any party where there's disguises and things like that, most people wear the clothing or the disguise that they would like to be in real life. and
That is very
and
true.
and it's a subconscious thing. Maybe it's not necessarily because that's the way they feel, but if it comes to your mind to think about, when I go to this costume party, I'm going to wear this and that, or I'm going to be this and that, it's because deep inside in your subconscious, you would like to be that. And so
Exactly.
and so the things that we say sometimes, even though the first thing that comes to mind is, well, I don't mean that, or even you yourself say, of course, I don't mean that. You know what I mean? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you do.
do. Because for the simple matter that it entered your mind, I don't know. I just feel that it is a subconscious thing.
Yeah,
And sometimes we can't control the subconscious mind. And if they're, like you said, dressing up in a certain way, it's because subconsciously that's what they want to feel like, or what they want to look like, or what they want to do. And sometimes they're not even aware of it.
yeah, exactly.
So when they call us these things, or when they say these words, or when they, behave a certain way, subconsciously, I think it's a lack of knowledge. They're ignorant, for lack of a
Yes,
better word.
yes, yes. it's ignorance. And when they're called out on a behavior that is racist, they become more defensive and tell you, but like, and one of my pet peeves about people defending themselves as not being racist is by telling you, my friends are black. I
Right.
have black people in my family. How could you say that about me? And what they fail to understand is that it's not having people in your family or people that you're close to that makes you non-racist. Because a serial killer, a murderer, can have family that they love, that they
Right.
would never hurt.
Mhm,
you know,
mhm, mhm.
that doesn't mean that they're not gonna go out there and find somebody and fucking kill them. Do you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But your attitude towards your family, the light in which you see a family member, perhaps, is never going to be the same as you see the rest of the world.
Outsider. Yeah.
You
It's
know,
not.
so the notion that I can't be racist, I can't be, prejudiced because I have such and such people in my family
Right.
is absolute fucking nonsense, and it is a classic cop out.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. The phrase that it just gets under my skin. No, mi mejor amigo era negro, my best friend,
Yeah, yeah,
black person,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So I mean, what is that supposed to mean to me?
Exactly.
That's receiving that type of information, you know?
And the fact of the matter is, saying it is just really your card. Like, saying it is just the card that being friends with that person at some point told you that it looked cool and it made you look good. And it's always gonna serve as a defense card for you whenever you should be accused of being racist, of race, or having
Right,
racist attitude.
right.
As long as you can say, what can you do, you know that my best friend is or was black, you know,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, that doesn't mean absolutely
Nothing. It
anything.
doesn't give you a pass.
Yeah,
It
nothing at
does
all.
not give you a pass.
So what we decided to do today is to talk about the intricacies of Afrocentrism in Latin America, because the main reason we call this podcast Behind the Ears is because in Latin America there's no escaping the fact that black people are there to stay and we there.
Whatever.
you know but at the same time, one small escape from that reality for a lot of people that aren't black is just to try to erase a black identity. You can
Mm,
identify as anything culturally in Latin America and you're good. Yeah.
except.
Except identifying as an Afrocentric person.
Mhm.
You are, if you notice, for instance, the countries in Latin America that have a practice of African religions, let's talk mainly about Brazil and Cuba. These are the people that have been otherized their entire existence,
Right.
because the religion that was forced upon us dictates that if you practice your African religions, if you worship and if you observe those African traditions, then you're still a savage. You're
Mhm.
not evangelized.
Right.
And because you are not evangelized, then we are not going to accept you. You are not acceptable into the society that we are trying to build.
Right.
So this was a way in which people of African descent in Latin America embraced that denialism. And some people of African descent were very smart about it. And the way they decided to do is that, oh, do you want to push your saints and your gods and your imagery onto me? I will adopt these motherfuckers, but I'll still name them after my African gods, which is
Mm.
where you got,
Mm.
a bunch of Catholic saints with a bunch of African deities names.
Right.
and you have all of these rituals that are performed almost as if they were Catholic
Right.
or Christian,
Very close to them.
but
Yes.
with an undertone of
Mm-hmm.
voodooism in all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that translates also into the way, as Black people in Latin America, we were educated, because we grew up with grandmothers and great grandparents who had embraced the whole idea that in order for you to be a member of this society, you have to do your best to stay away from anything that is objectively and openly Black.
Right.
So if you're a little girl, as soon as you turn 10 year or 11 years old, what the first thing you do? That hair. I mean, am I right?
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right.
And so that hair has to become, what is it that they call
A
it? Is it hot
hot
comb?
comb. A hot
Yes.
comb.
O el de rizado.
El derizado or hot comb. Let me see. I was 13 when I got my first derizado. I was 13. And for me as a little girl, it was a totally different ball game. It was like, oh my God, my hair is straight,
Yeah.
and it was different, but it was almost like a ritual. When you get to a certain age, we will straighten that hair.
Yeah. That's a rite of passage, isn't it? You know.
Right.
And so that for little girls, it's all about trying to get as close as possible to the European beauty standard as you can. You know,
Mhm,
I
mhm,
remember,
mhm.
when I was a teenager, contact lenses became available, widely available to people, and like I would go to school, and most of my friends had like different colors of eyes. All of a sudden, I'm like, what the fuck is
Mm,
going on?
mm.
And it was like, yeah, man, se puso lentes de contacto. You
Mm.
know what I mean? And it was
And
all
that
like,
that hit close to home. That does hit close to home because I ain't gonna lie, I had blue eyes.
you did?
I did. I had blue eyes with blonde hair, you
Oh my
know.
Lord. Oh my Lord.
Yeah, I did. Straight blonde hair.
My goodness.
And
But
I
I
had some blue eyes.
I want to see that.
I'm gonna show you a picture. I'm gonna show you a picture. And I was like, it totally transformed my look. And it was almost like it was giving me permission
Yes. Yes.
to move into another category. Put me that way. Put it.
You are absolutely right. And so for me, these kind of things were somewhat a bit shocking because, as you know, I was born in Haiti, moved to the Dominican Republic when I was 11 years old, and so for all intents and purposes, Haiti is a Black country. Yeah,
Mm,
Haiti is a majority Black country, and so we do have colorism, of course we do, because colorism is part of an inheritance of slavery.
right,
So
right,
we
right.
do. I mean, I understood people with lighter skin were looked at a slightly more favorable ways. And, little girls and young women were always on the look for a dude with a type of hair or a type of skin color so that they could have prettier babies and shit like that.
Adelantal, adelantal.
Adelantar la raza. I mean,
Absolutely.
colorism does exist in every country in Latin America,
Yeah.
but the whole idea of we are not Black, the we are not Black situation, I had never heard. Right? There's a current in Haiti that embraces voodooism as part of a mainstream religion in Haiti, and
And in Cuba too, because they have a Santeria in Cuba.
yeah, Santeria, exactamente. And so that wasn't ever a problem. But upon my move to another country, I realized there is a decided effort on the part of people, young and old, to be categorized not only as not Black or other, but rather, no, we are white.
Right.
Because, as I said on our first episode, the question of blackness wasn't an issue of this is the color of your skin, but rather, as long as your skin is darker than mine, then I'm white
Right.
and you're black.
Right.
Espérate, yo no soy tan prieto.
Right. Right.
Yo no soy, pero yo no soy, no, yo estoy quemadito, pero yo no soy tan, de hecho, si yo me pasara un invierno en Nueva York, yo regreso blanco.
Oh, sí.
Have you not ever heard that?
Oh, I've heard that quite a few times. I've heard that.
And so it was like, okay, so what is going on here? And so learning history is an important thing, Mars,
Oh my God,
because
it's essential.
yes, it was through history that I became a bit more forgiving because I understood the context behind the entire idea of anti-blackness.
Mm.
And we could go into that on another episode. You know, the efforts of a president/dictator in the Dominican Republic named Rafael Leonidas Trujillo Molina,
Yes.
who was a fascist, a racist, and had the black behind his ears because
Right.
his grandmother was Haitian, but yet he hated blackness and everything Haitian. And throughout his reign, he promoted even a history of anti-blackness to the point where people viewed it as completely normal to deny their blackness, because it's just a question of denialism. It's not something that you can wash off.
No.
You know,
No.
it's not something you can wash off, but you can deny it all you want. I mean,
Right.
you tell a lie for so many years that
You
at the end of
begin
the day,
to
you wind up believing.
Right.
You know,
It's like you say, people they ingrain this in their children, in their offspring, and it back to the beginning of the conversation where it's subconscious. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, but they learned that behavior. That was definitely learned because you're not born with it. You're not born with it. This denial of the blackness. And I could say I may have fallen a victim too, because
of course we all have.
I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I was a little bit lighter, this would turn this way, or this would shift this way.
Absolutely.
And and I think everybody experiences that. Every black person maybe could experience.
Yes.
I definitely felt it in my family.
Yes. Yes.
I definitely felt it. I heard that phrase several times. Hay que adelantar la raza.
Hay que adelantar la raza. Hay que refinar. In the Dominican Republic, they literally say, hay que refinar la raza. Refinar.
Yeah.
So you had two situations, at least that I could observe, and you tell me what your experience was. So I started to observe, and again, I was young, but again, it always was a point of observation for me. You had two different types of behavior toward race. You had the people who felt that if they had black in their family, you had the grandmothers, the uncles, the aunts, that if they had black nephews and nieces or grandkids, they gained some kind of status and credit because they had a daughter or a son that actually married into another race, and that make them more human and more accepting and more pious.
Right.
And they flaunted that.
Mm.
They flaunted that. Tú ves, mis nietecitos así, pero son morenitos bien lindos y bla, bla, bla. But there's always a pero. Son morenitos, pero son bien portados.
Parecen muñequitos.
Sí, son unos negritos bien educados y bla, bla, bla. And it was always the pero. Yeah, my daughter married a black guy, but mi hija se casó con un morenito, pero este señor es doctor en filosofía y bla, bla, bla. Y sus padres están en Nueva York y habla el inglés como si fuera, so you had those people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then you had those people who literally wanted nothing to do with being black or having black people in their family.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that.
So this is where, for me, I am ever so surprised every day here in the United States and when I've been through Europe that a lot of people that in their country wouldn't even come close to admitting being Black are embracing Afrocentrism to a point where I'm like, is this real?
They are more than anybody else.
Are we like, what is this? Do you know what I mean? They come here and all of a sudden is, yo, I got an afro, I've got dreadlocks, and I only listen to Black music and blah, 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 blah. And boom, boom. And they post all these pictures on Instagram and Afro here, Afro this, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and the power pick and
Yes.
and all of that.
And I'm like, in your country, you
Do
can't
that
even
at
bring
home.
yourself to say you're Black. Where is this coming from?
Right. It's
So-
funny you say that because I was having a conversation with a known person, and I asked the person, I said, so you are from the Dominican Republic. What do you consider yourself?
Oh boy.
And they really had to think about it. I said, is it that difficult? Really? Because it was to the point where it was almost painful for them to admit,
Yeah.
And I said, but what if you had a line that was Black line and white line, which one would you go into? Well, really, that doesn't apply to me, but here, here I'm dark. I'm
dark.
I'm just a little darker than I'm just dark. I guess I would go to the Black line, but
I
said, "No."
guess.
I guess he had to think about it. And then I said, but in your country, would you say you're Black? Well, we don't use Black.
Who don't use Black?
We don't use Black. That's what, and I was just so taken aback by that. I'm like, you look Black to me, but I mean, and you look Black to me in your country too.
Yeah.
And I said, so what do you consider yourself in your country? Well, there's really no Black and white. We're all one race.
No.
Why is it so difficult for them to accept that or for them to admit what they truly are? Because the way I see it, your hair is just as nappy as mine. Just because you put a little bit more gel in it than I do, that still doesn't make you, pelo lacio. No, pero yo tengo onda. No. Eso no son onda. Eso son pasa. If you ask me,
Yeah.
No, bueno, nosotros somos mulato. Oh, but mulato's not a race, bro.
Mulato's not a race.
It's not a race. So, yeah, I have encountered that numerous times, to the point where they've even told me, well, you're not Black.
Yeah,
But wait,
exactly.
what?
Yeah.
It's like,
Tú
no eres negra porque tú eres hispana. No, mijita.
And they think that once they add the ito to it, that's it. Like I've people saying, pero tú eres morenito.
Yeah.
Morenito, pero así negro. I mean, negro.
Oscurita.
But, because again, it's all about how pronounced the darkness of your skin. Because if you are, indiecito, indiecito oscuro, like, first of all, I'm not indiecito. I have no taino.
Right.
23andMe tells me that I am 97% Black. African.
You can't deny it.
Okay. So, but then, you have people of Latin descent that take the test and they are 51, 53, 57% African, yet they're still telling you, yo no soy negro.
No.
Yo no soy negro porque 23andMe me dice que yo tengo familia en Andalucía. But it does say that you have family in Nigeria too.
Right.
And the Bantu people and shit, like, but that's not registering because hashtag yo no soy negro, yo no soy negro, yo no soy negro.
Right.
But yet, the moment that they find themselves outside of the country, they embrace this Afrocentrism.
They rep their blackness.
Because it's cool, because Me gustan los morenos raperos, so I'm going to imitate them. And don't let me get started with how much they exploit the arts for their own benefit
Right.
while denying being black.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because that's even a completely different topic.
Right.
Latin American artists who identify as white or at least not black have no problem embracing black arts, black rhythm, black music to make a
Culture.
fortune,
Right.
culture, to make an
Yeah.
absolute fortune while not representing anything that is black.
Right. They capitalize on it. They
Yes.
take advantage of it. I call it taking advantage of it because they're only associating themselves with it for a purpose and a reason, not
Yes.
because they truly identify with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the Dominican Republic, I'm gonna give you some examples. And if you are watching or listening to this podcast and you think, oh, this guy is always speaking on them, no, it's because this is I can only talk mostly about my experience. And Dominican Republic is where I grew up, is where the majority of my observations of
Took
this
place.
issue of race and color comes to play. And you have regions in the Dominican Republic, the concentrations of sugarcane on different parts of the island. Wherever you have former sugarcane plantations, you have a lot of people of either British island
Mhm.
descent or Haitian, which is
Mhm.
why you have a lot of Richardson and Johnson and Kelly in some parts of the Dominican Republic, you know, Horsefords and this and that. And then you
Mhm.
have a lot of Jean, Jean-Pierre, Jean-Louis, Jean,
Mhm.
whatever, right? And so these are people that,
Pierre
migrated
Louis.
to the Dominican Republic to cut the sugarcane plantations and stuff like that. So those
Right.
areas are called batalles. And in the batalles, those cultures, you have the Guloya culture that is very, very prominent in San Pedro and La Romana. What are the Guloyas? The Guloyas are dances, carnival dances that the people from the British Isles brought with them to Samana, San Pedro, La Romana, and those are African rituals, to be honest with you. Yeah. And the whole idea of them called Guloya in the Dominican, the Guloya, it's because the dance itself was a reenactment of the fight between David and Goliath. So there, hence Guloya, los Guloyas. Yeah. David and Goliath. And on the Haitian side, then we have the rara, which in the Dominicans, they can pronounce ra, so they say gaga, el gaga. The Haitians have gaga, and the Guloyas, the Cocolos, as they call them,
Oh.
the Cocolos have Guloya.
Yeah, Cocolos,
And
yeah.
so the Cocolos, and the reason they call them Cocolo is because here's the funny thing: everything gets deconstructed, right? So
Mhm.
most of the English speaking blacks that migrated to the Dominican Republic came from the Tortola Islands. So they were called Los Tortolos. And from Tortolos, it
See, that's a
became
new thing.
Cocolos,
Oh.
Los Cocolos. And then their carnival dance, from the dance of David and Goliath to Los Guloyas. Yeah?
Wow. I see that you just schooled me on something. I didn't know that. But I do tell you this. I used to use the word cocolo heavily.
Yeah.
Heavily,
Yeah.
And I figured, well, I can use it because I am black,
And that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I didn't know the history of
Los
how
Cocolos.
that came about.
And so all of these things have been embraced by as part of Dominican cultures, pure and simple. But the dances and the costumes and everything, they're completely proud of that. And they go and they have tourism and take pictures in carnival and blah, blah, blah. For that purpose, it is perfectly embraceable. Do you see what I mean? But still, no one will admit to be black.
Right.
The major exposure of the rhythm of bachata from the Dominican Republic is the Mr. Juan Luis Guerra. Yeah.
Right.
Luis Guerra took bachata to a completely international level.
Different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no Dominican will tell you that bachata is African music.
Right. Which it is.
No Dominican will admit that bachata is African music.
And like
Okay?
not a lot.
In the
Like not a lot.
Congos, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Benin, in a lot of these countries, there are rhythms that are played exactly like that. The same guitar riffs, the same rhythm, everything.
The
Yeah.
percussion the same. Mhm.
And get this, bachata was born in the cabarets, in the
Yeah.
batalles.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was the rhythm, the music of poor people who can only
Right.
afford one or two guitars. Because being
Instruments.
a
Right.
trio, you needed three guitars to have a trio.
Right. Right. Right.
Meanwhile, if you had a bongo and one guitar and a second guitar, you could make something out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? And so now the black music of the Dominican Republic, bachata, gets a guy who graduated music from Harvard, you know, and takes that music and classicizes it a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it becomes international.
Spruces it up.
Yes.
And now it's become
an international sensation. The same goes for Colombia. Who's the bastion of vallenato in Colombia? Carlos Vives. My dude is white. You know, it's that they have no problem exploiting the culture.
Yes.
But they stay white.
But they stay white. They stay white. They're whitewashed.
You know? And then it's become nuestra música, nuestro merengue, nuestra bachata, nuestro. So long as we don't have to give credit to the black ass people that fucking created it.
Right.
And so this is what I'm talking about. This is what this embrace of everything that we came up with. And I mean, you know that the same could be said for the United States of America, right? You know, there is no music, there is no art that are representative of the US that didn't come from black people.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Those melodies and those rhythms and all of that.
Rhythm and blues, rock and roll, and blues, and like
those stories. The blues are stories that
yes,
you know they made into. They gave it a melody, and those tonalities and those rhythms, they were actually used as codes, you know,
Yes.
to alert each other, and then they took them and made them into something, you know, entertaining, and they adopted it as their own. But those rhythms and those beats and those methods and melodies, those were, I mean, from black people, used as almost like defense mechanisms to alert each other as to, hey, come this way. And they would listen to the sound of the beat of whatever, whether they had a drum or didn't have a drum or used to beat on a bark of a tree or whatever, and make those sounds in order to guide themselves. And then they take that music and they, oh no, this
is American music.
It's American music. Oh no, I just changed the lyrics or I put a little snazziness in it. And that's us. That's indicative of us. No, it's not.
Yes. The thing is that a lot of folks don't realize that. They won't tell you that. A lot of people of black descent in Latin America don't even know what's theirs, you know.
Yeah, they can't own it. They can't own it.
The Garifunas in Honduras, you know, punta is your music, you know.
The ignorance is oh my God.
And so I wanted to talk about this because for me, I've been black for 48 years now. You know what I mean?
And me 50 plus.
and so blackness is not something I discovered here. And if you have come to the US if you have migrated to Spain or anywhere else in Europe and you've decided, I can be black here and I'm going to embrace blackness, good for you. But when you go back to your country, be as proud of your blackness as you are when you are outside of your country.
Right.
Be as proud of your blackness as you are here in the US, as you are in Spain, as you are in France, as you are in Germany.
Right.
Because it is what you are, it is who you are.
It is who you are. Yeah.
It es quien eres, it es lo que eres. Y
Right.
nadie puede cambiar eso. Nadie debería de decirte lo contrario.
Right. Right.
You know?
And even me, as a personal acknowledgement to myself, I feel blacker now than I've ever felt in my life.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Because I've had to battle that line. I've had to battle that. And now I'm at a point where I am black and I'm proud.
That's it.
I'm Cuban, but I'm black first.
Yes. Yes. That's
black first.
Because the fact of the matter is, you have to tell people you're Cuban.
Yes.
But when they see you, they see a black person. Just so I'm saying, but of course you are black first. Exactly. That's the entire thing. It's the same thing that we were talking about on our first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they won't even give us the credit that maybe they should come across and ask us, Señor, habla usted español? Señora, habla usted español? Because the first thing they see is your blackness.
Is my blackness.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I see it. I had an experience the other day.
Yes.
I had an experience the other day where the person was struggling,
Yes.
They were like, how do I get my point across? Didn't even cross her mind once to ask, habla español? And I would have even been offended if she would have said, búscame alguien que hable español, without even addressing me first.
Exactly.
Without even addressing me first.
Exactly.
So, yes, I am black first and I am Cuban second, but what gives you the right to disregard that I speak Spanish because of my blackness?
Yes. And as much as they will tell you, no era por eso, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Okay, so at work, I remember this person coming to the desk and they wanted to ask about a flight. He approached me and started in English, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could see that he was struggling, but he was gonna be able to make his point, to get his point across.
Right.
But my partner at that job was sitting next to me, and he is obviously visibly Latino, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
So my dude is talking to me. He's talking to me, but he is elongating his neck to see if he can get my partner's attention.
So he could jump in Spanish.
So he can actually, and then I'm like, well, what do you need? He said, I'm trying to get him. Like, he speaks Spanish. And I'm like, me too.
I can't.
Yeah,
and then the look of, are you kidding me? Or are you lying? Or for real? Or how much Spanish do you speak? Or where did you learn it? Are you serious? You get that look, as I get that look. It's like people, they have a hard time believing it. They don't understand. But because they have an image in their head, I need to get his attention. Yeah. He can help me better than you because we can communicate better.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people will ask me, well, if there are so many black people in Latin America, why do we see so many Latinos that are not black and not enough Latinos that are black in migrating to the United States? And I'm like, well, there's two things. Is that much in the same way that extreme poverty exists here for the majority of minorities, is the same thing in Latin America. Because in Latin America, black people became independent, but with no properties to their name and without an education.
Mm-hmm.
And so the struggle continued. And so in Latin America, for you to migrate to the US, you need to have something to your name, to go and request a visa.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
You need to be able to make to get a passport done, to have a property on your name, to have like, yeah.
Something.
You need to have some money even for that.
Right.
So what do you think happens? How come when you go to Brazil, the majority of the favelas are full of black people?
Are black. Right.
Yeah. When you go to Cali, Medellin, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
What are the people that live in extreme poverty?
Black people.
Yeah. The majority of campesinos in Oriente are what? In Cuba?
Black
Black
people.
people. So the people who have been able to get out and come here and pretend to be white, they are somewhat privileged back in their country, even if they were poor enough to migrate.
Right.
But compared to a person that is black over there, they still had more.
Right. They
It's the
did.
same dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same
Mhm.
dynamic. Now,
Yep.
you have those who are people of color that come here and pretend that never happened. You know,
Absolutely.
yo no soy negro, yo soy boricua. Yo no soy
Mhm.
negro, soy dominicano.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not black, I'm
Mhm.
Dominican.
Right.
I'm not
So,
black, I'm Puerto Rican.
right.
You know,
Right.
but
Even que no, yo soy cubana. No soy negra. Eres más prieta que yo, pero no, yo soy cubana.
yeah,
Ven acá.
it's nonsense. So
Yeah.
I think the message here is this: we don't mind you embracing Afrocentrism, but give credit to where credit is due,
Absolutely.
and it cannot be an act. You
No.
cannot come here and pretend to be all about blackness and all about darkness of skin, all about the Afro, all about all of that, the culture, and then the culture stay behind the moment you get out of you come down off a plane in your airport.
Oh, right. It needs to be genuine,
Yes.
and that's something that it's not, and it's unfortunate right now that they're actually participating or behaving in this type of way. Because why are you on the fence? One time, you're here and you're black and you're back in your country and you won't have nothing to do with it.
So
It's like, oh no.
one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this for a long time, even before I met you and we came up with this idea, I remember that there is this girl, I think she is some kind of artist, reggaeton, reggae, dembow singer or whatever, She's one of those vixens.
Mm.
Her name is Amara la Negra.
Oh.
Yeah. Amara la Negra. Yeah. And I remember she was on some kind of
Sábado
reality TV show.
Gigante. Oh, she was on Love and Hip Hop, but she got
Yes.
her big break on Sábado Gigante. She was a
Yes.
little girl, but she went to Love and Hip Hop. She
Well,
started Love and Hip Hop.
when she was in Love and Hip Hop, I remember reading a ton, but I'm talking about the most hateful comments
Yeah.
about her
Mhm.
for being black and for her behavior as a representative of the Dominican Republic. Like, you can't represent us, blah, 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 because.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely floored that most of the comments, they were more about because you're black.
Right. Right.
Because you're ugly, because
Right.
you're black, because you're ugly, because you're black, because you're black, because you're black.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
actual fuck is this?
Right. Right. It was overwhelming.
Yet
So much
this
so that they
girl,
were giving her popularity.
yes, and this girl has embraced Afrocentrism.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when she goes to the Dominican Republic, that doesn't change. She's still Amara la Negra.
She still is. She still is. I think
And that's where
her
all the hatred
mother
is coming from.
is Dominican, her father is from Honduras or something like that, or vice versa. But when she goes to her country, she is who she is.
Yes.
She doesn't
Yes.
waver from that.
Yes. Yes.
She's firm with it. She doesn't toggle
Yes.
with the back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
She is true to what she is, which is, and I hate to even say that's commendable because that's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be, exactly.
That's the way
Exactly.
it should be.
There's nothing commendable about being yourself.
Right.
You know.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and it broke my heart. But also, I remember one of the reasons I talked about Gaga and Guloya and stuff like that is there was a controversy because most of these rituals and dances and stuff they happen, during Quaresma, during
Hmm.
Lent,
Hmm.
and
Right.
towards the Easter weeks and whatever.
Religious. Yeah. Hmm.
And I think I remember reading about some controversy where certain parts of the Dominican Republic were thinking about forbidding the representation of Gaga. And, there was a hashtag Todos Somos Gaga because the few people in the Dominican Republic that have embraced Afrocentrism were against that. But the whole idea was because Gaga has a voodoo connotation to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not something that we want. Do you know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
There's those Juegos Panamericanos. I remember some guy who is of Haitian descent, last name Jean or something like that, and also a girl too, were receiving a lot of flack for participating in Juegos Panamericanos
These games.
representing the Dominican Republic
Right.
because they are black and
Black.
of Haitian descent.
Right. Right.
But the thing is, that has happened forever.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of dark skinned Dominicans that have represented the Dominican Republic in the Major League Baseball and blah, blah, blah. And they may have a last name like Alcantara and Rodriguez and shit, but these are people whose great grandparents were as Haitian as I am, moved to the Dominican Republic, bought themselves a cedula from some dead person and adopted the fucking last name Alcantara or Dominguez or Fernandez, and the rest of their families is Dominguez and
Rodriguez
Fernandez, and
Perez.
they're no longer Haitian, but they're black.
Right.
And so these
Oh,
niggas make it to the
yeah.
Major League Baseball,
Right.
with that last name, and no one
Right.
says anything about that.
No one.
Do you know what I'm
No
saying?
one dares. Yeah.
Do you see
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Because there's that too. How many, in the years that I lived in the Dominican Republic, do you know how many people attempted to sell me a cedula so I could have a Spanish last name?
Right. 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 Right.
But I've
Mm.
always been Graham Pierre Louis, and I'm proud of being Haitian born Graham Pierre Louis.
Right.
So I
Right.
didn't need a cedula to change my last name and shit. If you can't
Mhm.
say Pierre Louis, that's your problem.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. Right.
And so you
Absolutely.
go, you look at Germany, you look at Spain, you look at France, you look at Sweden. Most of those countries that are incredibly white. If you look at their athletes representing their countries,
Oh,
are
absolutely.
children of black immigrants,
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
and they fucking win.
Yeah, they do.
67% of the French national soccer team is black.
Hmm.
Children of African,
Absolutely. With conviction. Yes.
you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then those little culicagaos in the Caribbean are complaining about black people representing them in Los
Right.
Juegos Panamericanos
God. I mean,
because they're too
I can't.
black.
I can't wrap my head around that.
You fucking kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He has a
Yeah.
Haitian last name. He shouldn't be representing Dominican
Our
Republic.
country. Right. But what kills me, what kills me is that it was one island at one point.
Yeah.
They were all mixed together
Yeah.
at one point.
Yeah.
Everybody was the same on La Española when it was La Española.
Yes.
It was the
Yes.
same.
Yes.
What happened to that?
I will tell you the story on another conversation, but that's story for another
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
We are going to leave it here, and this, of course, going to be a controversial episode. All of
Oh,
our episodes are going to be
absolutely.
controversial.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
we welcome that
We welcome that.
because, if you're out there, you're the masses and you identify as black now and, not later. And we want to hear from you. If you identify as fully black and, from the Caribbean or you have another identity, we want to hear from you.
We want to hear from
You
you.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, we want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on. What are your thoughts? What do you think? What's your opinion? How do you feel? What are your
Yeah.
experiences
Yeah.
being black while living? I mean,
Yeah, be respectful.
Yeah,
We're not
absolutely.
here to, not here to take shit from anybody. So
Right.
be
It's just a
respectful, express
conversation.
your opinion, we'll respect it,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
do not go ad hominem, because we're not gonna accept that.
Right.
If you have something to contribute to this conversation, fine, whether is negative or positive what you have to say, but we
Right.
will not take any comments that are ad hominem,
Right.
because when you go ad hominem, that's because you have nothing to say about the issue. You would
Right.
rather focus on the people that are speaking.
Right.
We're not going to accept that. So if you're going to do that, fuck off. You'll be blocked, you'll be dismantled.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obliterated.
Yeah. So you can find us on the threads, actually. I don't know if you've subscribed to threads already. Instagram just launched the Twitter version of them, called threads. You can find us on threads. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok at Shuka Cuba, right?
Shuka Cuba. That's it.
And me, you will find me as Mr. Puzzetta. That's MrPuzzetta.
Mr. Puchita.
Mr. Puzzetta. For now, we're gonna say goodbye. We'll see you next week, and we'll
Oh,
have another hot topic for you,
oh my God. Yeah.
because there's a lot to talk in it.
Yes. There's a lot. There's a lot we got to get out there. We got to get it out.
Excellent. So thanks, Mers, as usual, for this
Hey.
convo,
Oh,
and looking forward to another one.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right.